right now, I want to know if you feel threatened or unsafe while you're at work or out in public shopping, because 47% of people now say that they are fearful of being out in public post-pandemic. Our guest on the line is a consultant with decades of experience studying consumers. She's been measuring consumer confidence and optimism throughout the pandemic for a series of reports that she calls The Journey Back to Joy. Lisa Miller is with us. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So I'm looking at these numbers here, and it says that almost half of people are afraid to go out shopping and go out and being in public. What's driving this?
Well, basically, if you think about when the pandemic started, we were all fearful of COVID, obviously.
Sure.
And I came up with this phrase called lead with joy and reassure with safety. But what's happening today is the fear around just people are showing up back into the economy. Patience is low, anxiety is high, and we just get into all of these scuffles. So as a result, the violence is actually negatively impacting the economy, just like inflation and labor shortages and all of that. Violence is making us not want to go out.
Where is this violence coming from? I mean, we've all seen the reports of people getting angry at other people for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, whatever the preference might be, and people acting ridiculous. But what types of violence are you seeing happening outside of that?
Well, basically, we've all seen these viral videos, and basically, if you think about expectations are really high. We've all been pent up in our homes, and we want to go out and have a nice dinner or go to a movie, and so people are just their patience is so low. So just the littlest thing, if your hamburger's wrong or your soup is cold, people just blow a gasket. And I think it's just as a result, we've kind of many people have just lost their social skills while they've been sitting at home for the last few years.
I was going to ask you that. Is that what it is? Because you're talking about cold food. There was a case, I think it was in New York City. Somebody got cold French fries at McDonald's and complained, and then their son came and shot the clerk over cold French fries. There was a little more to it than that. They started bickering. But is that what you think is happening, is people have lost the ability to be able to relate to one another?
I think that is, even before the pandemic with social media and things like that, just, connecting, on our phones and on the computer, we've lost how to talk to people and resolve problems, in person. And that's what's so troubling is that, a year ago, those would be like scuffles, not good, but people were, just pushing people or things like that, or just, yelling at each other. But now people are pulling out guns and stabbing people. And so it's really, troubling that the consumers are just scared to go out.
And, I saw that beforehand, even before the pandemic hit. It's like now suddenly the punishment for cutting somebody off in traffic or switching lanes is death if somebody didn't like that. Is the pandemic, because that was going on, and I think I agreed to you to a point about social media having an impact, was the pandemic just the straw that broke the back?
It is. It's, 2 years of isolation. And even if you think about, one of the things I've been studying is the language of COVID. And you think about, that's just scary words: lockdown, shutdown, isolation, quarantine. All of these words, they've had a lingering impact. It's, on our psyche. And so again, as people go back out, they're like, finally, I can just go back out. But we've all seen it. At the airports, I saw just the other day, a gentleman was just completely yelling at the clerk behind the counter because he couldn't get on his flight. Well, it's not that person's fault.
Yeah.
And so I think we all just honestly need to take a little bit of that chill pill and just, go out and just have some patience and know that we know that things are not great with labor shortages, inflation, and all of that. But just remember, there's somebody on the other side of that customer experience.
That's easy to say. I mean, because we all know that inside. Is there anything people can do to prepare themselves? Maybe take a moment before they leave the house and convince yourself that you don't need to kill that person if they, put cheese on your hamburger and you didn't want it. Is there just any practices that we can do?
Yeah, I literally will say it's, I know this sounds kind of, crazy, but it's like lead with joy. If you go out into the world and you actually believe that, people are, be nice to people. And it sounds like things we learned in kindergarten. But again, I think the pandemic, we've really lost these things. So I think you do. You just, when you walk out the door, just know there may be lines, know that there's going to be grumpy people out there, but you don't have to be part of the problem.
You know,
And if all of us could remember that just in that moment, like, things don't go well. I went to a restaurant, and I'm in Dallas. I went to a restaurant. It was $70 for two of us, and there were no drinks. And I was like, sticker shock. But I'm not going to get angry at the server for that. So we just all need to, take a breath, be a little bit more patient and be a little bit more kind to people.
Coming up, we're going to talk about legalizing recreational pot in Texas. Maybe that'll calm people down a little bit.
I actually asked some questions about that in my next survey, so I'll have to circle back with you.
Well, yeah, when you're done with that survey, get back to us, because I'd like to see how that's going to have an impact on things. Lisa Miller, thanks so much for taking the time to come up with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You bet. You too.